Good afternoon. I want to thank everyone for joining. My name is Yori Gary, and I serve as the Director of Youth Partnerships at the National Network for Youth in Washington, D.C. Let's see if we can get this going. So I'd like to thank each of you for taking time out of your day to join this webinar and learn a bit more about our upcoming work to provide support through trainings and technical assistance to communities and organizations desiring to elevate their partnerships with youth and young adult leaders. We are really excited about this work and the ability to really work one-on-one with organizational leaders to share our learnings, both missed opportunities and successes over the past few years that we feel has truly enabled us to build and sustain a group of young leaders across the country who are a vital part of our organization's national policy work and our mission to ensure that no person in this country or any country has to experience homelessness. So first, I want to share a bit about our National Youth Advisory Council, who you'll hear me refer to as youth advisors. Then I'll share a bit regarding our organizational approach to youth and young adult partnerships and engagement that we believe is vital to any group desiring to collaborate with young leaders for change. And then after that, I'll share about our initial training and technical assistance and support services we will offer, and then finally open it up to any of you to ask any questions. So our youth advisors, they partner with the NN4Y team. That's not just me. And, my work with working with all things young people and young leaders and partnerships and engagement within our organization, but they truly partner with all members of our team on youth and young adult engagement, as well as the policy work that we are engaged in. They represent every U.S. region. Our current team of youth advisors, they represent 15 states. They all have lived experience. They all have experienced homelessness, and many, if not all of them, have also intersected with various systems, including the child welfare system, the foster care and juvenile justice systems. As a group, they have completed over 70 meetings on Capitol Hill with their local representatives and or senior staff members. They have delivered presentations and spoken on panels at national and international conferences, specifically really talking about youth voice and collaboration. And as a group, we have partnered with groups including FISB, the United States Interagency Council on Homelessness, and the American Bar Association, just to name a few, specifically working with those groups, empowering leaders, providing feedback on federal homelessness benchmarks and criteria, as well as training tools for lawyers and other organizational leaders. So just them in action, from the very beginning, I believe that effective leadership had nothing to do with me standing in front and leading, but it was truly the moment I could take a step back, listen, and let our young people run the show because we had prepared them to do so. So I think that in doing this work, it's really a mindset from the very beginning, believing that they are capable. They may not have all the training that they need yet, but they're capable, and that if you prepare them to do it, they will do just that. And over the past 3+ years, I have witnessed them lead panels and presentations at conferences. I've witnessed them travel abroad and moderate international meetings, collaborating with other street-connected youth from 3 other continents to really talk about similarities and differences of youth homelessness in their home countries, and to really work together on a collaborative strategy to address such, as well as leading legislative briefings on Capitol Hill as a team, and then working with other groups such as Voices of Youth Council in Chapin Hall and speaking at briefings for them and other groups as well, really just representing youth voice, because it is critical when talking about issues related to and impacting youth and young adults that we have them at the table a little bit more. And then in action and kind of what we've witnessed and seen with our own group, meeting with senators and congressional leaders to really speak on the specific policies that help them, the policies that hindered them, and the need for those policies to continue to be funded, to really ensure that other young people don't have to go through what they went through. I've witnessed them work with federal agency and organizational leaders to provide feedback on research papers and help them design media trainings for their leaders. I've also witnessed what can be captured in photographs, and that is really going from being unemployed to sustaining both part-time and full-time employment, some of them for RHY programs and providers, enrolling in community college, universities, and even graduate school. I've even witnessed, a few of them compromise their sobriety and regain it again, right? Because this work, it's not all roses and lilies. It is hard work, but it is meaningful work when it's done authentically with an unrelenting commitment to meet young people where they are, allowing them to tell you where they'd like to go individually and in partnership with your organization, and really being there and being willing to be flexible and dedicated to providing the support to help them get there. So we didn't build what we have overnight, and frankly, we are still building, still dropping the ball at times, still dedicated to picking it up each time, learning from our mistakes and missed opportunities to keep building, not for our young leaders, but with them. And there are really 5 things that we kept in mind from the very beginning while building and sustaining our youth and young adult partnerships. Those 5 things are process, relationships, training, impact, and evaluation. Process is really just going into it with the mindset of engagement, right? That we're going to include them every step of the way. That is the goal. And when you're setting goals, being very conscious to set SMART goals, but then ensuring from the very beginning that you have a mutual understanding. It's critical that the young people coming to the table know exactly what their role is, what the responsibilities are, what the expectations are for them, as well as your organizational leaders, because it can be a very different dynamic when you're bringing young people in, not as tokens, not to just kind of sit in the back and listen, but really bringing them to the table as leaders and as co-partners in your organizational work to achieve whatever the goals are that are specific to your mission. Relationships is the priority. It is a priority. There have been so many times where we have had young people who are on our team that we advise they don't show up to a specific conference or a specific speaking engagement, or that they don't participate in a particular call that the team may have been doing because they had a life crisis or they were going through things. And, my mindset, and I would believe that this would also be the mindset of those of you who are working directly with young people, is that nothing is more important to me than your well-being. Not you helping me to meet this deadline, not you showing up for this event, but your well-being. And I think that kind of really speaks to the idea of relationship building and making that a priority. Because if I don't have a relationship with you, I won't even know what's happening in your life. And sometimes, even when I do have a relationship with you, right, it's still very possible that you're not going to know everything. But definitely prioritizing the relationship allows them to really know you see them and that you value them as human beings first and foremost. And I think that in that, the response that I have gotten from the young leaders on our team is, it is rare that we ever ask them to do something that we believe that they are capable of doing, that they have the time to do, that they won't do. So having those relationships to be a priority. And then that idea of shared responsibility, that cultivating the relationship isn't just a one-way thing, right? So, I mentioned we may not know everything that's going on in their lives. Well, it's also on them to reach out to us. And I think that when you've kind of cultivated that relationship and it's authentic and it's continually growing and developing, that the young people will understand their responsibility and continuing to kind of keep those communication lines going and that relationship constantly developing. The next thing is training. We really saw having our National Youth Advisory Council as a leadership development opportunity, not just for them to do policy and advocacy work, but really an opportunity to develop them, right? Develop them as whole human beings, as leaders, young leaders who are adults who will continue to kind of do professional work beyond the work that they are doing with us and with our organizations. And I think that this is a very important mindset in your approach when dealing with young people, especially for those who are serving young people, whether it's serving them in your communities, in your specific organizational programs, in your schools, whatever it is. If from the very beginning, I see you and I view you as more than somebody who is a recipient of the services that I'm providing, if I'm already seeing you as a leader, if I'm already seeing you as capable of contributing to the organizational goals and missions that me and other, trained staff are doing, then I am going to approach you differently. I'm probably going to have a very different set of expectations for you. I'm just going to kind of hold you more than likely to a higher standard. So I think from the very beginning, I didn't see what was meeting the eye with a lot of our young people because they came to us in very different places. Some of them were already enrolled in school. Some of them had already graduated school, right? While others of them, they may not have had a job at the very beginning, or they may have still been living in transitional living when they started, but now, they're in their own apartment. I think it's really approaching it and kind of seeing the future from the very beginning and understanding that this is an opportunity. Working with them is really an opportunity to develop them as not just human beings, but as leaders. Impact. I think that it is critical to keep in mind the impact, not just the organizational impact and how it benefits the organization to really have young people at the table, actively involved in your programs, in updating your policies and your processes, but also realizing the impact for them. And I think a lot of that is just the very reality, even if you look at research, that young people are the best advocates for their peers, right? There are times where I can't reach, or other members of our team or other, older adult leaders, we may not be able to reach other young people in the way that their peers can kind of reach them and connect with them because they're closer to it. They understand things about their peers and their generation in ways that we don't, right? Which means that they'll be able to have an effect that we won't be able to have. I think it's just a different skill set that they kind of come with. So keeping in mind, and envisioning, okay, what's the impact and what will our impact look like and how will our impact change once we factor in having young people at the table as co-equal leaders with us in this fight and in this work. And then finally, evaluation. And the evaluation for us is really about us being very conscious and being very mindful about listening. And one thing that I will say is that for the past 3 years, we have invested in third-party evaluation research to really enhance our learning over the course of time of us really, becoming more serious about doing this work. And we will learn even more when we have the results of our 3 years of research this summer that we're excited to share with everyone within our network and even beyond it. But I think that evaluation, especially if you have some sort of third-party evaluation, even if you're not able to kind of fund that, being very mindful organizationally to really hear their feedback and heed it, right? Really take notice of what they're asking you, what they want you to change, being able to kind of really challenge yourself to be flexible and make those changes in every instance that you can. And I think that with having a third party, in place to kind of help you with the evaluation once you get your group started, or even if your youth board or the groups that you have, councils that you have with your young people, if they're already started, of having the third party evaluation is really the ability to get unbiased feedback. I never know which one of our young people is saying whatever it is. And sometimes the evaluation is positive. Sometimes they are reading me my rights, right? This needs to change. There needs to be more of us represented. We need to speak more, whatever it is. And I think it gives them the opportunity to really be honest with you about changes that, one, they feel need to be made. And I feel like a lot of times when you're working with these young people, they won't just propose changes, they'll also propose solutions. And that's one thing that we really advocate for within our group. So they'll also tell you their thoughts of how to go about doing that. So the first thing that we will do with any group interested in working with us in any capacity is to really define the project scope. And we will do this by asking 3 simple questions in the very beginning. What do you want to change? What's stopping you? And how will you do it? Right? I believe that these questions truly serve as the catalyst for change and the starting line for us collaboratively developing a strategic plan unique to your group's specific goals and challenges. So that's really, beginning from the very beginning of what is the vision? What is the vision? That vision, more than likely, is going to change. It's going to keep changing and keep updating if you're really doing the work properly, right? Our vision has changed because we may set these goals, but then we realize, okay, we've kind of met these. So then what's next, right? Or we set this goal and realize, hey, this wasn't so realistic. So we kind of need to revise this. The vision will be written and be rewritten, but I think it's really understanding and identifying, working with you all to identify the barriers. The barriers could be funding. The barriers could be, we don't have any young people, or we perceive that they won't be dedicated enough. Our staff isn't really behind it. How do we kind of integrate? There could be so many reasons why either you haven't started your partnerships with young people or you haven't expanded it or elevated it. So really getting to the nitty gritty of what's stopping you, and then based on those barriers, how will we kind of work through it? What will be the solutions of how we'll work through those barriers collaboratively so that we could get back to the vision? So once we have a clear project scope and have brainstormed all of your ideas and your plans, we can then move into a plan of action. And depending upon where your organization is in your process, this can take 1 or 2 formats. In person and video training, either for leaders within your organization, tailored specifically to your unique challenges and objectives, and one-to-one coaching. And this could be twice weekly, bi-weekly, monthly. Coaching really will be where we check in to see your progress and any unforeseen challenges, and then offer ongoing support and assistance as you work through those various tasks and challenges related to either launching youth partnerships, youth boards, or relaunching, sustaining, and expanding those youth and young adult partnerships already in existence. So at this stage, we have a couple of sample trainings that we really have in mind to start for both staff as well as staff and young leaders combined. So if you already have your young leaders on board, maybe you only have a few of them, really coming in with you to begin the visioning process with them, as well as multi-day trainings. The trainings can be half-day trainings, full-day trainings, or multi-day trainings, really depending upon your project scope, your goals, and your organizational needs. And while these are samples of trainings we think make sense based on groups that we've spoken with so far, the reality is that no 2 trainings will be identical because no 2 groups are identical. So we are prepared to really tailor the training to your group's needs. And even if what we have here isn't what you need, If it's something that we believe is in the realm of our skill set to be able to design and to deliver for you, we will do that. So I'll kind of go through the three that we have in mind just based on prior conversations that we're kind of preparing to develop with groups that we've already been in conversation with. The first is really around meaningful youth and young adult partnerships. And this is probably aimed more so at staff and the leaders, right? And this training really would explore why youth and young adult partnerships work, highlight the best practices in regarding how to create and sustain meaningful partnerships with young leaders to achieve organizational goals and objectives. If I'm honest, I kind of see this going hand in hand with the all aboard preparing organizational leaders for youth and young adult partnerships. So once, there's buy-in from everybody and not just the one or two, staff persons who will be working directly with the young people. Once there's buy-in from the whole organization or all of the key stakeholders, right, within the organization, could be your board. If you're community-based, the structures are different in terms of what stakeholders kind of need to buy in. But once that's done and the mindset is very clear and you understand and you value the idea that, hey, yes, we really do need these young people working collaboratively with us hand in hand every step of the way to be able to meet the goals that we've set for them and for their peers, then really just looking at what are the best practices and how to best prepare staff to transition current and former youth and young adult clients in many instances to co-equal partners to achieve organizational goals. It's just like the person who was, your colleague one day and then they walk in the next day and they're your boss, right? There's a transition that's taking place. And while there will be or need to be the transition for young people, there's also a transition that takes place for the leaders within the organization, including those who will be working directly with the young people day in and day out. And then finally, one that really excites me is this idea of the youth board vision board. And, the vision here is really an in-person, almost retreatish, strategic planning, training guide that will guide organizational and youth and young adult leaders through creating a collaborative and a comprehensive vision that will serve as the foundation for organizational youth boards and councils. I'll speak on, and I believe it's the next slide or maybe the next two, of why this is important, because this is something that I did not do at the very beginning when we were expanding our National Youth Advisory Council. And it is something that I believe is critical of having staff and young people working hand in hand to kind of write the vision together of what they will do and what they will accomplish together. And then the next thing is really the coaching and the ongoing support, because everything won't be in the form of a training for multiple people and multiple leaders or even the young leaders. Sometimes it will really be with whoever that core staff member or core staff members or leaders who's responsible, right, for really writing the vision, launching it. Maybe you're at the beginning stages of completing a grant, to be able to do this work at whatever stage you're in, really being able to provide partnership coaching and ongoing support to this person. And this is something that I believe is so critical because during one of the consultation that I had maybe about 2 weeks ago, someone asked me what trainings did I use to prepare. And I thought about it, right? And I was like, well, I read resource articles and I talked, to the 2 or 3 young people that we already had at the table, but there was none. There was no specific training that I could point them to that, hey, I read this and this really just made things clear for me. Or I attended this and this really just, not to say that there weren't or aren't any trainings out there that can help you or develop you as a leader, but specifically to engaging young people and partnering with young people. There wasn't a resource that I used. I think that is part of why we have made it a priority to offer whatever support that we can, and even me individually offering whatever support I can to organizations, to leaders in collaboration with the young people to really do this work, because there are things that will likely work in many communities, right? Every community is different, every organization is different, but there are places where I fell short and missed opportunities that I'm like, hey, if I can stop you from doing this, or if I can warn you to maybe consider this, it may definitely help you in the long run. So the coaching and the ongoing support is really us providing, as I mentioned, it could be weekly, it could be bi-weekly, it could be monthly, whatever it looks like, depending upon whatever stage you're in. Ongoing support really assists organizational leaders at various development stages in creating, elevating, and sustaining programs to meaningfully partner with youth and young adult leaders. And this can be around application and recruitment, So is there an application process for them to come on? How do you recruit them? Really designing the youth board. What does the operations of it look like? What does the agenda or maybe the program, right, for the young people look like? It could be strategic planning, messaging and storytelling, youth leadership development, and different training opportunities for the young people. If they're doing an event or you're, bringing them into the fold of events and conferences that you're doing, it could be event and activity planning as well as your program evaluation at the end of the day. So those are the things that we are prepared to do, but we are definitely open to and excited and eager to speak with other leaders to kind of know specific needs, because there are many things where we may not think of until we kind of know, okay, this is a specific need for you. So then, we can tailor things a bit more once we kind of know the specific and individual organizational needs. So what are the next steps? If you feel like we could be of some help to you in a little way, in a big way, the next step would be, if you haven't already, scheduling an initial consultation with us. There's a link to do that. I do not have that embedded into this, but we can send it out, or I can figure out a way to type it in if that's possible. I believe someone from the team is on the call, or a few people from the team, they're on the call, but we can get that link to you. Do that if you don't already have my contact information. Scheduling that initial consultation, and basically what happens there is me doing a lot of listening, understanding what your vision is, what your goals are, where you are in your process, just whatever you have to share about your vision for what your partnership looks like with the young people that you're working with, or the young people that you desire to work with, to kind of know, okay, realistically, this is something that we can help with. Or we may not be able to help you with these 6 things, we can help you with these 3, or we can help you with these 4. So really having that initial consultation, that typically lasts, I would probably say, in the ballpark of about 45 minutes. The last 2 that I've had, they've lasted an hour, a little bit over an hour. I tend to be pretty flexible, but it's really an opportunity for me to learn about it. And then at that point, I think we come together to really define the project scope. So based on what you shared are your goals and your vision and the things that you need help with, it's really the merging and the intersection of your needs and where we feel like we can kind of fill in the gaps to provide and to address and to support you in achieving some of those goals, and really developing the project scope. Where you need you all as an organization, as a group, as an entity, being very clear, hey, this is what we need, and us saying, okay, this is what we can help with, and really developing the project scope organizationally. And then beyond that point, really finalizing what our project agreement is. And when I say project agreement, that would be between the National Network for Youth, specifically our National Youth Advisory Council, in partnership with ourselves, as well as what the pricing looks like. I will say, you kind of see the note there that, the teams, and when I say teams, I mean the specific young people who will be working on the project for your specific organization. Just know that those teams are going to vary, and they're going to vary based on what we feel is practical, right? If you are someone who has a, pregnancy program, your program, or your you know, the program of young people that you're developing a board for, it's for, you know, pregnant moms who are pregnanting and parenting while they're homeless. We're probably going to pull on some of our young people who have experience there, right? Same thing, you know, so we'll kind of try to mirror it based on your demographic so that we have young people who are supporting in collaboration with myself and the rest of the NN4Y team. That kind of makes sense. So the teams and the fees for the project, the in-person trainings, and the youth and young adult partnership coaching and ongoing support will vary. Not just may vary, it will vary kind of based on your organizational needs. Every group is going to need something different. And then the final thing that I want to say is that there is a 25% discount for all NN4Y members. So if you're not a member and you're listening, definitely advise you to become a member because yes, it just makes sense to do. So I am at the end and I will open it up for
questions.
Questions.
This is Darla. Can folks hear me? Can you hear me, Yori?
I can hear you. And I
okay.
See Monique.
So if folks have, there's a couple of questions that were submitted under the questions box. If people have questions, I can unmute, but you can also, if you can use the chat box and type to the entire audience, that would be ideal. What I did put in the chat box is I put Yori's email address. You can email her to schedule a consultation. And then if you have any questions about membership, someone did ask a question if they were a current member. They weren't sure if they were or not. So questions like that or any other questions about membership, I put the email address member@nn4youth.org. You can just send that email the questions that you have, and we will let you know if you are a member or any other questions about membership. And then the other question that I saw is if this presentation and voice recording will be available later to share with some young adults who would be interested. We are planning to post a recording of this webinar on our Youth Partnerships webpage, and I am going to post the link in the chat box to that page on our website. And then I am going to unmute everyone now to see if anybody has any questions. They can ask them, but I ask that if you are not speaking and you are somewhere with a lot of background noise, if you could please put yourself on mute, and then we will hopefully be able to take questions over voice. Okay, everyone is hopefully unmuted. Yes. It's not working.
I can unmute myself if I click on the little microphone.
Okay, yes. Okay, good. So if you want to talk, if you could click on the little microphone, or I think is it interesting. Oh, folks are self-muted. Does anybody have a question? You can also type it if you have a question and you can't get yourself off mute. You can also type it in the chat box. And I just put the link to the web page in the chat box. Okay, yeah, you can unmute yourself at any time.
So this is Meg Pike. I'm from Clark County School District in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I work a lot with the COC and youth providers trying to expand youth voice in our COC. one thing that we're having issues with, and I'm wondering is part of the training or could be part of the training, is trying to come up with some kind of incentive program and what that could look like for our community.
All right, Yori?
Yeah, hi, Meg. Thank you for that question. Yes, that is definitely something that we can speak about further.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Do other folks have questions? And some people, I've been getting some questions about membership over email. I will respond to the emails, but I am also putting some links to where you can get the answers to these questions on our website as well. Anybody else have a question?
Okay. I see Michael Wagner asks, is having an application and screening process for youth entering into an action board important? We don't want to create barriers to entry, but we have had several disruptive members who have happened to slide in early and have inhibited the growth and forward momentum of the board. Is this something that you have dealt with before, and how did you go about addressing it? So I think more application and screening, it is something that is important for us, but, you know, in all fairness, Michael, this would be something that we would have to speak more about of what that could look like in a way that makes sense for your organization so that you're avoiding creating barriers, right? So I think part of it could be there are things that you're going to foresee from the very beginning in the application process. Maybe they're not answering that many questions, right? And maybe it's that you're making it accessible depending upon what the population that you're targeting. It may be more convenient to have it electronic, right? It may be more convenient to have it written. I think it's in the process of developing whatever that application and screening process for the young people will be. I think that you consider the things that would be barriers, even if it's literally them being able to fill it out or the likelihood of them filling it out. You know, what would make them want to respond. What I will say is what and why I believe some sort of process, regardless of what that looks like, is important. One, because it gives you and them an idea. One of the things, and I believe that our application is kind of connected online. We update it every year, but the one that we used last year or for our last group that we onboarded should be connected to our National Youth Advisory Council webpage on the NN4Y website under engagement. One of the things that is important for us to know is, why do you even want to be a part of this? So I think in an application doesn't have to be, it can literally be you talking to them. So our application process includes both a nomination from a organization that they are connected to locally. Then they submit an application online. If they have any issue, you know, any technological barriers, we can provide a paper application that the nominating organization can then get to them, and they complete that and they've scanned it to me. That's happened before. And then after that, I have a conversation with them, which is something like an interview, but it could be, you know, quote unquote screening. I think for me, it's important to understand that this is something that they want to do, that it's a commitment that they're wanting to make, that nobody's forcing them into it, right? So they understand, and that I understand, you want to do this, because them wanting to do it will be critical to them remaining engaged, right? So, you know, that's kind of the first underlying thing. I want to make sure you want to do it. Two, I need to make sure you're clear of what you're signing on for. We can update the roles and responsibilities as a group as we move forward, and we have done that, you know, as a group. But as it is right now, when a person enters, I need you to be very clear of the roles and responsibilities that you're signing up for. So that is something that we kind of cover in the application before they say yes for real, right? And then for some of you, if it's within the organization, it may not be as important. But one of the reasons why one of our thought process behind having the nominating component of it was simply because our young leaders are across the country. So they're not all across town from us, down the street, or we can just get to them. And we wanted them to be able to have that additional support. That is likely something that I would recommend, especially for people who are doing either citywide councils or groups with young people or statewide, making sure that there's another support beyond, I guess, the organizing entity to be able to support the young people in whatever they will be doing, whatever the tasks are that they're kind of carrying out. So those are just, a few reasons why I think it's important. But in terms of how it looks for your specific organization, I think that is definitely something that's developed case by case, and that you do it with your target group in mind, so that you eliminate whatever potential barriers would stop them. I'm not sure if I answer your question, but if you have a follow-up, we can either speak about it or you can type an answer in. And then I see, excuse me, another question from Jill. Can you provide examples of some strategies that you have found to be useful when working with a variety of organizations who are touched by homeless youth, such as foster care and DJJ? Jill, I may need a follow-up or clarification. So are you asking for strategies when working with multiple organizations? Strategies around what's the strategy when you have multiple organizations at the table? I think I just need some clarification there. Oh. Okay. So I'm not sure if I'm going to get to the meat of your question. We can also have a conversation offline after this. I do not. But I think that when you have various organizations at the table and you're working, I don't know if these would be multiple organizations all working with the same group of young people, or just some collaborative of young organizations who are working on behalf of the young people. Regardless of what it is, in terms of strategies, because we have had instances where it's our group and it's other groups and it's our young people, right? So it's multiple people at the table, different people who have different goals in mind, and likely a difference of expectations. And I think that the first thing is really ensuring that you get everyone on the same page, because we're coming with kind of our individual goals, our individual, and when I say individual is sort of interchangeable with organizational at this point, whatever group or entity you're representing, right? We have our own stuff that we're walking into, I guess, a room with essentially multiple stakeholders who they all have their own setup, So I think when a strategy for me in instances like that is really getting on the same page and almost developing and writing out what are the goals for this specific kind of collaborative that exists in this room, so that we're clear of what we as a group are working toward. What are the goals? What are the objectives? Who's going to be responsible for what? And then kind of just sharing. I think that's kind of, a starting point of really just getting on the same page, and like kind of creating a way to kind of keep that communication going, so that at no point is anyone kind of just working independently. Like that would almost defeat the purpose of multiple entities coming together to address the single thing, right? So I think it's really coming together and really defining what are the shared goals for our group, or the shared responsibilities, what's the shared vision. So is there a way to get the PowerPoint emailed?
Yeah, I would say provide your email address or put it in the chat box or in the question box, or just send Yori an email. I put her email address in the chat box, and you can request a copy, and we can send a PDF of the PowerPoint. Also, a recording of this presentation is going to be on the website YP Consulting that I put up. I put in the chat box too. It's our website, NN4Y.org/YP Consulting. That's where we'll be adding information.
Any other questions? You can type it or you can speak it.
All right. Well, I think this is a wrap, right, Yori?
Yes. Yes, Lynn, that is possible. And what we're gonna send it out. What may also be helpful is if you can send me an email if you don't get it from me right away. The PowerPoint, because it's easier a lot of times to reply, right? But yes, we can send the presentation to you, and as Darla mentioned, it will be posted on the website specifically for the consulting. The other thing that I want to add before I thank you for your time is that if you have other specific questions that are unique, definitely if you haven't already, we haven't spoken already, schedule a consultation with us. Really have kind of a chat specific to your group and your goals and your needs. And, you know, if you had a question today that you didn't ask, you can ask it then. If you need more clarification for a question that, you know, you already had, we can kind of go through it then. But other than that, I definitely want to thank everyone for taking the time to listen in on this webinar. And we definitely look forward to connecting with you in the future and figuring out how we organizationally in collaboration and partnership with our dynamic young leaders can continue to support you all in your organizations and the work that you're doing, the meaningful and very important work that you're doing with young people. I won't even say for young people. That's not the language we're going to use. With young people in your communities back home. So thank you, and I hope that everyone has an amazing rest of the day.